All right, guys, welcome back to the Angry Bird Pod Show. I'm your host, Kyle. You can find me at kyle.boehm.photography on Instagram. I'm with my boy, Matt. You can find him at _Matt Parrish on Instagram. And I don't think I need to keep calling out what number the intro is, but this one's number 4. Hope you've listened to the first 3. If you haven't, what the heck are you doing? Go back and... Actually, you can listen to the other 2. The first one you can probably just ignore. What do you think?
I don't sound like this, innit?
No, you definitely don't.
I actually went back and I looked back, or I listened back, and it was pretty bad. It wasn't as bad as when we recorded. I think it was, whatever we amplified it with or something. But yeah, it was not good.
Yeah.
But here we are.
I'm glad that we've sort of resolved some of the audio problems, and I have other plans on how to edit more. I want to start with a thing that happened to me last weekend that Can
we start with something else first?
Oh, right.
The old famous Twisted Teas.
I really need to pick up some of those, and then we can both be partaking in Twisted Tea at the same time.
All right. Well, sorry for cutting you off there.
No, that's fine.
Your segue right in was beautiful, but we had to christen the 4th pod.
That's true. You're right. I made an error in judgment on that.
Floor's all yours.
Okay. Throughout the last couple of podcasts, we've talked a lot about money and how I differ and the way I think about it. Can you still see me? My camera cut out.
No, you're good. Yeah, I see you.
The screen on my side isn't there, so I don't know what I look like. Anyway, we talked a lot about money and stuff and how I think a little differently than normal people and you. And one of the questions that you asked me was if something happened to any of my photography equipment, what about my being able to replace it? And why that came to my mind, you can still hear me, right?
Yeah,
you can. Okay. Why that came to my mind was that I went fishing with my dad last weekend. I believe I told you that.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to bring my camera on the boat because we were going to be fishing in sort of shallow waters, and I knew stuff was going to be sort of migrating, and I wanted to be prepared. Didn't really see much while we were out there. The last day, I saw a type of wader, shorebirdy thing, not really shorebird, but in the reeds. And I couldn't tell what it was at first. I brought out the 800 on the R7 because I didn't have the R8 back from Canon yet. And I took a couple pictures, didn't post them. They're very bad. They're not interesting, I should say. They're not bad. They're just not interesting. What it turned out to be was a Gallinule juvenile, which was kind of cool. That's not the part that's interesting. So, to this point, every time we've loaded the boat, I've been wearing my backpack. But once I'm on the boat, the last fishing rods, the last tackle box has been loaded. I put my backpack with all of my camera stuff underneath the one seat. We travel to where we're going, start fishing. And it was just on the boat. So my dad's friend lives a very short walk away from the dock where his boat is. And he has a little wagon that he brings all the tackle boxes, anything he's bringing on the boat with him. And we would unload that and load that up every time we got on or off the boat. And like I said, every time I was wearing my backpack because I was like, I don't want anything happening to this backpack with my shit in it. Last day, literally the last, we're leaving shortly thereafter. We're going to have lunch and then we're taking off. We're unloading the boat. And what my dad's friend does is he leaves the wagon on the dock and we just get back, load shit in it. And I start unloading fishing rods and gear and stuff. And one of them, my dad or my dad's friend, put my backpack in the wagon. And I looked at it from the end of the dock and I was like, I'm going to go put that on after I grab this last load of stuff. I turn around to pick up the things and I hear a splash. And I was like, I look over and the wagon is sinking into the water and my backpack is floating on top of the water. So
Oh no.
the part that would rest on my back is like down in the water. And on this backpack, there's like a flap that if you laid it on the straps, it would open vertically sort of upward. So there's that part, that zipper is up. So I walk over there my dad's friend grabbed my backpack, my other backpack, which had my tackle boxes in it. I grabbed the fishing rods and the wagon and I put them on the dock and I wanted to go check my bag, which is now safely on the dock, but it was floating 10 seconds before this. And I go to put the rods down and I have a few treble hooks stuck in my sweater because there was a lure on it. And so I can't unfold myself. There's water pooling around the bottom of my bag. Oh, no. And I'm like, I'm not panicking because it happened and whatever, but I'm stuck. And I'm like, hey man, can you like get these hooks out of me? And he's trying to get the treble hooks out and he kind of can't because there's barbs and stuff. So this is where Knife Hobby comes in handy. I'm like, reach in my pocket, grab my knife, cut me out of here, and then I'll deal with this. Is a holy sweater anyway. I don't care. Cuts me out. I put the rods down and I open the backpack and there's just like 1 or 2 drops kind of in there. The backpack kept water from ingressing in. And I was really happy because I was like, honest, like my stuff's sort of dry. Like there's water on it, but it wasn't submerged like I thought I was going to see when I opened it, right?
Thankfully, yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, because I've been there, I've seen it.
I know. Like immediately I was like, damn it, like Mike's gonna say something or Matt's gonna say something. So I end up, we go back to his house, which is literally maybe a minute walk from the dock. I open all the bags up. I take all the R7 out, the 1 to 4, the 800, the 50. I have a little Velcro package thing of batteries, some cables. Just take it all out. Grab a towel from inside to wipe off the water that's on there. Attach them all to the R7 and just take some pictures of a rock in the neighbor's front yard or something. I don't remember what. Just to make sure everything was fine. And it was. But I was like, that's the closest I've come to just all of it gone.
Right.
And then I was like, Matt might have a point.
Well, it's amazing how quickly these things happen. Like, think about how much of a shit show that was in mere seconds.
Yeah. And I was like, I hate, like, it's I don't know if this has happened to you, but the last thing I thought was, I'm going to put that on when I get over there because I don't want it to go in the water. Like, I saw the backpack and then thought that, turned around, heard a splash. I was like, no.
Yeah.
But
it's that close. Like,
yeah.
See, the thing that I think about replacement value now is it's long before like Mike decided to throw his Z9 in the water. Back when I was shooting Fuji, I used to use, before the cotton carry, I used to use like a Peak Design slide strap. And they're great and everything. That one's probably the most comfortable. But so we were camping, I was with the kids. I quickly tried to get away. It was in the early spring. There was some warbler migration going on. So, dealing with the kids, and then I decided quickly just to go to the back of the little camping lot and take a few shots. And as I picked up my camera, it was sitting on the picnic table. Well, the issue with picnic table is it's not a solid top. It has like rungs. It has like 2x6s or 8s or whatever. Well, the strap itself was stuck, kind of wrapped around one of it. Yeah. So when I picked it up and I grabbed it by the grip and I started to walk away, well, the camera didn't come after about 2 steps, maybe a step and a half. And it ripped right out of my hand and it fell straight down onto the hood. Luckily, the hood was out in shooting mode, so it didn't hit the front element. But when it landed down into the grass, kind of, dirt area, it landed and kind of janked the actual lens mount. So the lens is actually, where there's a stopper on your mount?
Yep.
There's a little piece of metal that kind of snaps into place once you get it locked on.
Yep.
That thing actually advanced and smiled the metal a little further.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it actually went past the contacts. So it was missing a couple of the contacts. So when I'm turning on and off my camera, I'm thinking everything's completely broken. I was
Oh,
able eventually to actually realize I'm going to spin it, like I'm going to take the lens off. As soon as I did that and I gave it a little bit of pressure, it snapped back into place, and then the contacts were touching again, and
okay.
everything worked. But the only problem is with the zoom lens, every time I zoomed out, it would lose contact because now that smile would advance it on the mount, just that little
Yeah.
bit
Yeah.
where it
Yeah.
would
Yeah.
turn. And I shot like that for like a year and a half that way,
Oh, wow.
where I'd zoom all the way out to 400. Then if I wanted to zoom in, which I didn't very often, that was okay because I wasn't going against that smile that I created. But if I was ever to at 100 and I wanted to go to 400, I'd lose connection every time.
The smile was on the lens itself or the body, or both?
The lens itself, the lens
Okay.
itself. It was actually the bayonet lens mount
Yeah.
itself,
Yeah.
yeah. And I thought about replacing it and or sending it in. I just never did. I took a hit on the lens when I wanted to move to Canon, but I was kind of done with it. Obviously disclosing what happened and everything was good, but it's not just what I've seen happen to other people's gear. I kind of dealt with it a little bit myself, and that was a $2,700 lens at that time, the XF 100-400, long before they had the 75-300 or whatever they have, and the 150-600. So it's come down in value since, but yeah, it's scary when you drop something that's nearly $3,000 and you're just like, I'm gonna have to go shoot a 55 250 or something now.
Yep. Yep. I,
You
I've
know.
now, I've now had that.
Yeah, and it kind of makes you realize, wait, what he's saying does happen and can happen at any time.
There's been,
Maybe it's not an issue to you. Maybe it's not a concern for some
yeah,
people.
there's been 3 other times that I've thought a little bit that way, but they were smaller deals. The first time I slipped on ice while looking for owls at a spot, and like I just rocketed towards the ground, and then I was kind of tossing my camera in some soft snow as opposed to on the ice I was falling on. It was fine.
Yeah, yeah. But these
my-
are all close calls where it might not be fine one of these times.
No, for sure. Another time I went to take a piss and I leaned my Sony kit up. It was on a monopod at the time against a tree, and I was peeing, and I heard movement, and it just like crashed down and landed like hood first into some mud. And then recently I don't remember where I was, but I was charging my car at a charger, and I wanted to walk into Canadian Tire for a second, but I had my camera stuff with me. So usually I just wear it in my backpack and be like, I'm not stealing anything. My camera's in here. I don't want to leave it in the car. If they want to check it, it's fine.
Yeah.
But I went to pick it up out of the car, but I had been shooting or doing something, but I hadn't closed the flap. So I grabbed it by the like handle at the top, and I turned, and all of the stuff in my backpack like tumbled
came
across
out.
the parking lot. Yeah.
Oh, no.
R7, R8, 800, 1-4, like everything just out on the pavement. It was fine. Everything is fine, but there was some marks on some of the hoods. But yeah.
That's
so-
just because it's military grade plastic. What'd you call it? GMC dashboard or something?
yeah, like GM dashboard plastic.
Yeah. Shit's durable.
Yeah, man. But yeah, so
yeah,
like,
it's
I'm now thinking
scary.
about if I were
It's
to
scary.
dump like the 200 to 800 in the lake.
I certainly thought about it when I was using it. Obviously, you feel like you can handle it in a lot more situations out in the weather, bumping it on something. It's got that extra added build quality to it. But what's build quality when your lens is only worth $600 on the used market?
Yeah.
Just go replace it. You're at $1,200. Do it again. Now you're at $1,800. I think my math is right so far. You're not even anywhere close to what the actual $3,000 200 800 is. But it's it's not all about money, obviously. But if you're just thinking of it in that way, the replacement value of something, you can replace it 4, 5, almost 6 times
Yeah.
before you get to that value.
Yeah,
So,
you're not wrong.
It's a silly, maybe to a lot of people it's a silly thing to consider, but just replacement value if you're just not carrying insurance is it's kind of important. You don't want to be on the sidelines. You actually got your R8 fixed for free, the on-off switch, and you were still kind of disappointed you didn't have it around.
Yeah, I would have liked to bring it with me to throw in the water. But ultimately it was the safest of my gear because it broke. So that's kind of funny.
Yeah, yeah, interesting how that works.
But yeah, I thought you'd get a kick out of that, and I didn't tell you about it till now because I figured it was a good
Yeah,
podcast discussion.
it's just scary. I hate to hear those things. Again, like I think the biggest PTSD I have is obviously the Algonquin Mike thing. But anytime now you hear about something happening, you're just like, oh, that's not good to hear.
When I was in Disney,
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say when I was in Disney last year, I saw a guy walking with a Z8, and Z9, and I asked him about it and just talked, and I was like, yeah, I know a guy who threw it in the water. He was like,
He
no.
hated it so much. The zone autofocus, the 3D autofocus sucks so much. He just threw it in the water.
I guess
We just lost. We just lost 5 or 6 Nikon guys. No, I'm kidding.
that's all the people that shoot Nikon anyway. Got him.
Get him.
Got him.
I was down shooting my local harbor on Lake Simcoe last year, and I was walking down to a public boat launch or a boat like a dock, and there's a little bit of a you got to kind of walk downhill just a little bit on this dock to get to the water level. So it's slightly on it's a dock, but it's attached to the land, and then it goes down into the docks that are on barrels. So it's slightly on a decline, I guess. And it just freshly snowed, and as I'm walking down on it, where it connects to the docks, it's got metal, a metal brace, like a metal hinge, and of course, slippery, cold, wet. I hit it, and I'm holding onto my R800 and my R8 in one hand just by the grip, and my arms go flailing because, of course, I slip, and I don't know how I held onto it because it was just going to go flinging into the water. And for some reason, someone was looking out for me that day because I held on to that thing like I was like Eddie Hall, just with grip strength. I never missed.
The beast.
Yeah.
If we're talking
we've
about
all had our close calls.
2 days ago, I get the R8 back, and I'm like, all right, let's get this, or whenever it was. Let's try some stuff. So I put the 50 on, and how I think we went over this in the first podcast, but if they haven't listened to it, I was introduced to photography by taking pictures of my pocket knives and posting those online. And I was like, oh, let's try some of that. Like, there's no birds around my house right now, so let's just mess around the yard. And we have these wooden Adirondack chairs in the yard, and I put it on the one armrest of it, and then I kind of looked, and I was like, oh, the picture would be kind of cool if I shot through this bush, like through like the leaves, so like some out of focus green bokeh, and then the knife on the chair. So I stand on the chair to take a picture straight down, and the chair is like slippery wood, and I just go ass over tea kettle in my yard. I just land on my back, and I just like kind of tossed the camera into the grass while I was falling, and I was like, I'm going inside. Like, F this. Like,
I'm just a hobbyist. Why am I?
What am I doing?
Yeah,
my dog's looking at me like, what happened?
Yeah. Yeah. Execution at its finest.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, speaking of execution, we failed to execute this past weekend on our trip that I might have brought up.
Yeah.
Last week.
You hopped up to the gonk.
Yeah, it's funny. Like we went to Algonquin. We had beautiful weather. It's funny when you start a conversation and you start with how nice the weather was, because it usually means you didn't get much else. From my fishing days, anytime anybody like, well, how'd you do? I'll go, well, at least the weather was nice. So
It's true.
So it was one of those things. It's interesting. It got me thinking. I've shot there many times. Only a couple times with a group. And most of the times it's kind of walk a trail, find something along the way, kind of not by luck, but just more by searching. Mm-hmm. I guess there's a little bit of luck involved, but more by searching. This time was more of, there were a few spots we wanted to check out, and, they were kind of more well-known spots where things had been being seen recently. So if something's being seen recently, you more or less go to the spot, and since it's been seen there more regularly, you kind of wait. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot of waiting in between looking for something, which can pay off. This time it didn't pay off for us. Whereas we'd run into people that had, I guess, intel, kind of the networking of the whole thing. And they had maybe just seen something, and then when we show up, we just miss it. Or we had just left a spot, and then a couple hours later, we'd talk to somebody, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, I just got the bull moose at," and we're like, "Damn it, we just left." So,
Yep.
it's an interesting thing when you're shooting something so vast. Is when you're trying to kind of chase intel or go to specific spots where things have been seen, it can be a crapshoot as well. And some people can have more luck than others. And
I have
certainly
no
we
luck.
didn't. You have no luck at all.
None. Well, actually, that's not true.
No.
I'll explain my luck. My luck is inconvenient.
For who?
Me.
Oh, okay.
So it's not bad luck in the sense that like a bad thing happens, but like exactly what you just said. I'll be the guy who shows up right before
Yeah.
or right after something cool was just there every time.
Yeah. Yeah, now that's just you going out for a walk, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually it's like, oh, I just saw a barred owl sitting in a tree. And it's like, oh,
I
damn,
lo-
if I left 10 minutes early.
I love reptiles
Yeah.
and I've loved it up in Tobermory. I have tried my damnedest to find a Massasauga rattlesnake to look at. Never
Why?
seen one. I love snakes, man.
Oh, I hate them. I mean, I don't hate them, but I'm not going out of my way.
I am. And like people will be like, yeah, just up there on this rock. Like there's one. It was there 10 minutes ago. Can't find it. Gone. Or like someone will be, yeah, I seen like 10 today or whatever. Never once
Yeah.
seen one. Want to find them so bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And it's nice to get tips like that.
For sure.
And usually that's how I do it. You're going to see someone along the way, especially when it's a more popular place. And there's always going to be people, especially if they see the camera. They're like, oh, I'm going to help this guy out. Even if they're just hikers, they're
Yep.
like, oh, I just saw this up ahead, just if you're interested. And so that's always fun. This kind of turned out to be more of a, this has been being seen here. Let's go here and see that. And then a couple hours go by, and then it's like, oh, well, this is being seen here. Oh, let's go over and try that. So it's almost like the networking of the photographers, some who are willing to share and others who aren't, and some that are willing to take the information and others who won't share in return. And that's okay, because that's really not my speed. We were just kind of going off hunches, because one of our buddies, Teddy, he had a couple guys up there that were in all kind of areas of the park. So there was intel kind of coming in. So you're kind of chasing, going to one spot, trying it again later, maybe missing opportunity. We had wolves right in the campsite that we were at. There were 3 of them that were seen very regularly in the 2 days that we were there. But we sat there for 4 hours the last day in the morning and didn't see anything. We apparently had missed them that morning, just before we got there.
That sucks.
Now, the thing about that is, anytime, especially something like wolves that a lot of people don't see, there's a lot of rhetoric that comes along with it. So you'll see people posting about these wolves. They're wild animals. They don't like people. There's only one. The only one thing that can be happening here is baiting. So you get that,
yeah.
which I didn't see any baiting, but I also didn't see any wolves.
Well, do you want to see
It's like
wolves?
you never see Bruce Wayne and Batman in the same room. So, what I mean? So I'm like one of those things. So I'm not saying it was happening, but it's easy to make the assumption, and it's not as easy for me to back it up because I didn't see any baiting, but I didn't see any wolves. And then what you get on top of that is when you're shooting with multiple people and trying to chase the same species being seen, is now you're kind of grouped in with that if you do have those photos. And I think sometimes people are kind of reluctant to share those photos, certainly if there might be a negative aspect to it. When there's a narrative about someone saying that they might be baited or they might be coaxed out or you're encroaching too much on their habitat and stuff like that, which I didn't see that stuff happening, but it's very interesting. It's easy to kind of see how it can get out of hand with something if somebody shares something with you online and you're like, oh, this has to be unethical as hell, but you weren't really even there. But it's easy to get that kind of avalanched on top of a post because it's something kind of rare or more unique, or a lot of people are actually getting a photo like that in the last week or two. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
I think so.
it's great to get those photos. And as much time as we spent looking for those wolves, or waiting, not even looking, waiting for these wolves to cross paths with us, maybe this is kind of like I don't even know if it's the optimistic or the poor sport. I don't know what end of the spectrum it is, but it's almost like you're kind of almost glad you didn't get the photos.
So that you're not adding to the problem.
Well, one, you're not adding to the problem. Two, you're kind of what I touched on last episode. You're not sharing those same looking photos as everyone else.
Well,
Everyone, they kind of put you in you must have been there with this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy. You know what I mean?
yep.
Yeah.
I think it was last year. And I think I showed you the picture first. But I had seen a picture on Instagram of a snowy owl coming in low to grab a mouse.
A white one, I bet.
Right. So I saw the white, which looks nice against the snow, kind of. But I was like, those are
natural.
Right. Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, that's not a natural look. Like, we don't have white mice. Like, we have the occasional albino.
They're natural at PetSmart.
That's true. Yeah, you can find them fairly regularly. Snowy owls will just perch up in the rodent department at PetSmart.
That's where I go.
It's fine.
I shouldn't have said that. Sorry. Ignore what I said.
But no, I was like,
yeah, you're right.
I commented, I was like, this is clearly a baited owl. Like, that's not a naturally occurring thing. You put that there. And then this person ended up running like a workshop doing this. So they would take people out and they would bait these owls and they would all line up and wait for this scenario. And I'm like, that's not nature. That's not real. That's not.
No, but that's how you guarantee.
That's where the whole thing of like, every time someone asks me like, oh, you should sell your pictures, I immediately think the people who start selling their pictures and depending on that money for their livelihood, their ethics meter moves. And that's where I start having problems for me. Because that's not what I want to do with my photography or my pictures. I don't want to show how I affected nature.
Is that because, oh, okay. I was thinking, is that because you think progression leads to more unethical things for the benefit of selling a print? Or no? Or is it just more I'm trying to figure out exactly
my line?
How that affects.
I just think that the moment that the photography is contributing to the food you can put on you and your family's table, the more things you'll be willing to do to guarantee that you're going to get a good shot to sell.
That's what I'm saying then. So it almost puts kind of an emphasis on using more unethical practices to continue growth and getting yourself out there.
I guess I didn't know what you meant by growth, because I was picturing like beginner photographer to more of like an advanced photographer and just learning techniques. Right. But you mean grow like in popularity, financially,
your business itself, how many spots you fill. Well, if you're doing a guiding thing or a workshop.
I don't think there's a problem with guides and workshops if you're going to include something like, I can't guarantee we see anything. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what I do in order to do this ethically. I would be interested in going on that kind of a workshop personally.
And they both actually are out there. You'll see the ones that will actually put ethics in the definition and the description, itself. It'll literally be in the description how it's created ethically, and we can't guarantee anything. And then there's the other half, the other part where you see the guys that show the up close owl swooping, and it doesn't say guarantee, but it definitely doesn't say you won't see any. You know what I mean? Like it kind of reads between the lines where it's like, if you want to see them bad enough, we have ways.
Yeah.
So you're always better to go with the ones that actually say, no, this is going to be ethically captured. It probably keeps the ones that want the shot regardless of the harm. It pushes them more towards the others.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
there's a certain type of people that are willing to go out and do that, and there's a certain type of guide and workshop that's willing to do that too. And that's the prerogative. Like, I don't think there's a law against it.
I feel like there might be for specific animals that are like protected because they're endangered or something.
Maybe.
I
I
don't.
guess I'm talking thinking more owls,
Oh, okay, yeah. Well,
which
even
is predominantly what you see, but I guess you could bait a Canadian lynx.
you
Just
could
leave
bait
some
a
meat. Like,
Canadian
I'm sure you
goose. People do it in parks all the time with a loaf of bread.
You also don't need to bait them for a shot
No,
either.
you
But
really just have to approach them and then just there.
yeah,
You know what?
yeah.
Freaking, this is off topic, but this is how I roll. Whenever someone asks me if I've seen a swan or I've seen the swans in a pool or a pond, I hate it every time. I'm like, I understand that they're white, but that doesn't mean they're not absolute dicks and are just large geese.
I think they're dicks to each other. I've found some really, really nice ones along the shores of Lake Ontario that as soon as I lay down, they come right beside me.
Oh yeah, my
They're
favorite
not
thing.
dicks to me.
Well, my favorite thing is to say it's like I imagine that's what like it felt like to be a dinosaur because you're laying down, you're actually small, like shorter than the thing,
Yeah.
and it just like wanders up to you and like honks at your freaking shoe or something.
Yeah. When we were in Algonquin, we were waiting at this one spot to look for a moose, and it's a spot where it's kind of it's a private road, so you park and then you walk in, just I don't know 600 or 700 meters. And I was getting a little hungry and thirsty, so I went back to the truck. And as I'm walking back to the truck, just myself, I took my camera just in case, obviously. But I get back to the truck, I open my tailgate of my truck, I grab my cooler and I open it, and then I hear bang right on my tonneau cover of my truck. And a raven had come down and landed right on my truck. Literally looking right at me, right in my face, 5 feet away. And I had never shot these habituated ravens in Algonquin before. Been going there for nearly 2 decades and hasn't really been an interest of mine. And I just get this opportunity because, of course, I'm at the spot where people go to see them.
Yep.
They're these ones that will eat from your hand. So, of course, he's looking for a snack. I don't give him a snack. Plenty of people are there that are going to give him snacks all day. So I did have an opportunity to shoot, like capture them. So I'm capturing them, and the thing I bring this up because you said like as you lay down, they kind of come into you. That's exactly what the raven did. I laid down to get like eye level with them because they're, I don't know, 15, 16 inches tall. So I'm laying on my stomach, just on my elbows, and every time I lay down, the thing hops over in this like comical way. They are characters,
Yep.
and literally just sits right beside me with his head cocked, just looking at me. Like my 100-400 is like 4 feet of minimum focus distance, and I can't even focus on him.
Yeah.
He's too close. So it was kind of interesting. Like they almost ruined the shot for you. So all my shots are like uber headshots, like super up close and tight because I couldn't even get them like wide. Because by the time, without throwing food, if I throw food 20 feet away, and then I get in position, and then I allow him to work its way back to me, that's how you get those shots that are a little further away. They actually are too close for working distance, in my opinion.
Bro, this 800 has like a 19.5 foot minimum focus.
I was
distance.
using,
You back
I was
up.
using the, I was using the 100-400.
Yeah.
I had the 800 on when I walked back because I was expecting maybe to see a moose along the road or the trails or something.
Yeah, moose you don't
but-
want to be 4 feet away from. For many
No,
reasons.
and usually they're going to be a somewhat of a distance, and then if they're interested and they're going to cross paths, which they're confident enough to do, they will walk towards you at a slow manner, and you have time to change. So I figured having a longer lens, if it walked out of the bush and into the lake or the pond, that was the better call. It was not the better call for the ravens. Those guys are. I've joined the club though. If you're from Ontario, and maybe even if you're not, but certainly if you're local, there's a club where it's a make believe club, but people that have taken photos of these exact ravens, posted photos of those ravens, and they're all like minimum focus distance, crazy amount of details, like the easiest things to capture.
And I think there's room for those. I think it's a
I
bad
hope
like
so. That's all I got the whole trip.
yeah, that
I
sucks.
hope there's room. I hope there's room for them.
There's a lot of room on
Continue.
your card. Sounds like.
Continue. Yeah, especially when you shoot JPEG. We just lost 3 more people. Continue on that thought though. There's room for.
Well, there's room for the tight headshots, and there's definitely room for shooting animals that are habituated. And I think where the ethics and habituation conversation kind of, it's hard to decipher where that line is, because you and I fairly routinely, go to like parks in Toronto where we know that these birds and stuff have higher amounts of foot traffic,
Yeah.
and where the people going to the parks aren't necessarily feeding them or interacting them with them at all. They're just around.
Other than your regular species, the geese, the mallards,
Yeah.
the swans, you'll see that everywhere. But yeah,
Right.
it's not like a redneck grebe is going to be habituated to the point where it's eating from your hand.
No.
Yeah,
But
they're
they're
just
gonna
used to people walking by.
right. And their nests are a few feet off the trail in certain areas, and like you might have to kind of stumble on some rocks or something.
Yeah,
But they're not. If you found one, just I know there's a couple that usually hang out on the lake near me. It's a larger lake, and actually not than where we go to, but at least there's the spots to view them aren't as close. So you're only going to get the far off, small in frame kind of shots, which some people are all about.
boo.
Boo. but like, I don't count those for some reason, and I might be wrong, as like unethically photographed birds. But the line between that and those ravens, which they're constantly being interacted by people, those are directly interacted with. Like people are like, you often see signs everywhere in zoos, like don't feed the animals.
Yeah,
That's why.
yeah. Now there's a story behind the female of the 2 ravens, and people believe that she was a pet. She had an owner at one time.
Oh yeah.
This is what I heard from this old lad Wayne. Wayne was the type of guy. He might have been in his late 70s, mid 70s. He was always where the animals were, but he was also everywhere and nowhere all at once. He just randomly pop out
Of the bush.
anywhere. This guy was magical.
Oh.
He had stories for days. He had all the encounters that we saw, like that we didn't see. We kept running into this Wayne guy, and it was almost like he floated everywhere, and he came out of the mist and just showed up. This guy was wild. Like he was a very intriguing individual.
I think you met Bigfoot, and his name is Wayne.
Yeah. Bigfoot's a little more gray nowadays, but Wayne was quite the character. Like he'd just show up anywhere. So Wayne, anyway, was the guy that was telling us about the story, how he believes, or there's conversation that one of the ravens, the female, had an owner at one time because she would, out of the 2, she's the one that would eat out of your hand, but she would only eat from other females. She wouldn't take it from males. If you put your hand out, apparently, it would just look at you and get close, but until you dropped it on the ground, it wouldn't take it from a male, only a female. So there's speculation that the owner was a male. The owner might not have been good to it. It only eats from females. I don't know if any of this is true. I don't know if Wayne is real. This guy literally was everywhere and nowhere all at once.
You'll
He was
notice
quite
something.
the character.
One of my biggest gripes with the R8 just happened.
Did you run out of battery?
Yeah.
Oh, is that
Thanks.
why you were just staring?
Yeah.
I thought you were really good at staying still on my screen.
No, on the screen of it says change or charge battery, and then I'm just on Discord, just like staring at you. I was so intrigued by your Raven story.
I'm going to take a screenshot.
Yeah, that'll be good. Just blank staring into nowhere.
So, yeah.
You're gonna have to deal with not seeing me for the next little bit, unless you want me to fiddle with it.
No, that's fine. No, go ahead. That's fine. We can continue. You can see me, right?
Oh yeah, you're good. Hi. I'm
Hello.
waving at you. You
Hello.
can't tell.
All right.
Yeah. That's interesting. I have two dreams. I have more than two, but two that apply to your story you just told. One, I really would like to befriend the crows in my area.
Good luck.
I've seen people on Instagram and TikTok and stuff they leave like peanuts or like something out for them on a platform, and then like
Right.
they'll continue to come back. But that's kind of baiting, I guess, but it's not for anything other than just like I want them to like me, kind of. I think crows are cool. Crows and ravens. Any corvid, really.
I think you got to ask yourself if you're the only one that's actually advantageous in this situation, then it's probably not necessary.
Well, they're getting food.
Yeah, but do they need it?
No. Well, maybe. I don't know. I didn't ask.
I guess I'm saying if photography's involved. If you're just walking through the park and you just want to make friends,
I don't
that's
really
one
have
thing.
any intention to take my camera out. I just think crows are cool.
All right. But in this situation, if there was a camera involved and there was a potential shot, like the only one that's benefiting from it is the photographer.
Right.
Right? Yeah, that makes sense.
Well,
yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
The animal's not.
You could say, especially if food is involved, like you are feeding them, but then you're kind of taking their hunting instincts and you're see now my brain's going like our bird feeder's a bad thing because
there's an argument there. Like I've heard
there is. Yeah.
Not even getting into the diseases and stuff that can go through feeder stations, but yeah, I've kind of heard the unethical story or the unethical part of feeding birds. Like I don't agree with it, but I mean I can see how a hardcore person could make that debate.
Yeah. Did you say debate or debate? Because that's a funny joke.
Debate. Tubate. No debate. I also think in the winter I think it's important in the winter.
I don't tend to concentrate on my bird feeder as much in the
no, neither have I.
In the summer.
Like in the summer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the winter,
I don't need it.
Keep
There's
it
insects. There's grubs.
Yeah.
People also argue they'll be at the bird's feeder gorging on seed when they should be feeding their babies. I think they're smart enough to like make sure. Oh wait, like you've heard the story about like the person that left their kid in the back seat for like 6 hours and forgot.
Well, the key difference there is person. People are jerks. Birds are great.
Yeah, but the argument is maybe they'll not pay attention to their babies. I don't believe that to be true. They're not.
You ever watched a goose around their babies? They're menaces. They take care of those things till they're like 28 years old.
Because they're building an army.
They have. It's built.
Well, yeah, they're always. It's the never-ending army.
Freaking geese and like the magpies you see in like Australia that just like dive at people when they go 30 feet from their nest. They're like, get that shit out of here.
Yeah.
I kind of admire it. It's funny every time. I was going to say my second dream is I want to own a vulture at some point. I love vultures.
Like a turkey vulture?
I would love a turkey vulture. A black vulture would be super dope. Any vulture. I think vultures are one of the coolest animals. I'll say animals, not even birds. I'd rank them above many animals for me.
Well, I want a raven, and I know where to get one.
Yeah, you can just pick them up.
She's already trained.
Yeah, they probably live. I don't know, but they probably live quite a while too. Like,
oh, I believe it. Yeah, I believe they do.
Do you have any?
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna switch gears. So
yeah, go ahead. Go.
Do you have any bucket list birds that you have to see or photograph before you die?
That's a great question.
I do. If you want to talk about it while you're thinking.
Yeah, go ahead.
One of my, because I just said I love vultures. I need to see before I die I'll take either one, a California condor or an Andean condor. I need to see a condor. And I do have relatives that live in California. And I learned this while I was down there. We were in a town or a city called Monterey, which is south of San Francisco on another point. And there's a location around Monterey, where is one of the locations that they release these California condor chicks that they raise and try to, as they're trying to repopulate replant them. That's not the right word, but send them back out in the wild after they've reared them in captivity to make the population stronger again. So there's actually a valid chance of me seeing one down there. It's probably going to be several thousand miles away in the sky, but
It'll still be big though.
oh, massive. Just pterodactyls.
Yeah.
It would be like I've watched videos online of people releasing them in like the Andes Mountains and stuff, and they'll release them from these crates that you would put like 110-pound like bull mastiff in, and they're like the size of a person, and they spread their wings, and their wings are like 8-9 feet wide. They're so cool with their ugly bald heads and their flaps of skin everywhere. So cool. I love vultures. So those two birds for me. Well, I guess one type of bird, but either one I would take. Just a glimpse would be sick.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Just because of the sheer size and
Yeah.
and the fact that it's actually obtainable
Yeah.
for you. So
'Cause,
that's
like-
kind of it. A lot of people would pick something that's like, oh, I'm gonna go to Antarctica and like those islands that are just off it and go shoot penguins. And it's like, okay,
That would
that's
be
a
cool.
$20,000 trip though.
Yeah. That would be cool.
So I don't know if I'm keeping it realistic. See,
Yeah,
I don't
realistic.
have. Yeah, but it's interesting. I've talked about this with a couple of buddies, Mike. About traveling and how Ontario doesn't have a lot to offer. That's certainly, what Mike had suggested.
But it's
earlier
yours to
into-
discover.
That's what the slogan is. Yeah. I kind of get excited just seeing the birds come back through and do their cycle. So I mean that's not a fun answer. But I think a bird that I'd want to see is a bird that I've already seen. It's just in its own habitat.
Which is? Or are
This
you
isn't
just
gonna
saying
be fun,
anything?
No. Well,
It's going to be like a
actually,
chickadee.
no, that's true though, because like for example, let's take a snowy owl. Wouldn't it be sweet to actually see a snowy owl like on its breeding or tundra grounds?
Oh, yeah. No, for sure. I get that.
You know what I mean? I guess that's the point. Oh, but if there was a bird that I want to see while I'm up there, I'd love to see one of the male or whatever, the gear falcon or whatever.
Oh, yeah. I want to get
Because
the pronunciations
like a snowy
again.
owl. No, that's why I wanted to say it quietly and just sneak it in there. That hawk or that falcon that
Yeah.
looks like a snowy owl.
Yeah.
That would be cool to see.
Yep.
In
Yeah.
up there, I guess there's a bridge or something that's up by Barrow, Alaska, that
really?
they kind of nest at or something. I've
Really? That's
thought
cool.
about.
I didn't know.
Yeah, we've kind of talked about going to Barrow and stuff like that. I'd love to see the shorebirds do their breeding up there, and there's a bunch of kind of stuff like that, and some eiders and spectacle eider and king eider. So I'm not really into locations because like I'd also want to go to like Costa Rica and see all their hummingbirds, but I also see those videos online of people just sitting under a fucking woodshed just with a backdrop shooting them.
Like I sent you this morning, I think.
strobe. Oh, I see them all the time, but yeah, you did send me one just this morning.
Every time I see that, I'm like, what's the point? Like,
Well, you'll get the shot.
you the same shot as Joe Schmo beside you. Like, you have literally
is-
the same shot.
But there's a group, there is a population of people out there that only care about the shot, and if they can pay for it, they'll get it.
Yeah, it's not me.
There's a pay to win aspect that can get you ahead, and what I mean by get you ahead is get you ahead with your own catalog.
What is getting
Right?
ahead, though? Like, just expanding your amount of birds or improving the pictures?
What I think it's more what you've been able to photograph.
Just the number of species.
It's sort of like a list, except you actually have proof.
That's true. I love my Peterson guide. I should just go in the back and just check mark all of them. So when someone like looks in my book, like, you've seen all these? I'm like, yeah, totally.
It's like, this one hasn't been seen in 38 years.
It's fine.
Here. Well,
Yeah, Ivory
I
billed
saw the
woodpecker
one.
in Ontario. It's crazy. I'm the only one.
Yeah. I'm just very content. It's so silly. I don't even know I'm going to go on this tangent, but I'm just so content with just shooting the seasonal changes around here. I rarely I really think about going elsewhere or like puffins. Like I've seen everyone do
Oh,
puffins,
they're like fourth on my list.
and half the people in the group have gone and seen them, and they all have photos, and some of them are vastly different than the others, but they're still just photos of puffins. Now you can say, well, everyone has a barred owl. Yeah, but I didn't spend any money to go do that. I did it on a Sunday morning. It's kind of like
I
loons.
Yeah.
Back a couple years ago, I started to get into loon photography, and I got some loon photos. Then the next year, I got some loon photos with a couple slightly better photos. And then I got the next year some loon photos. And it was kind of like, well, all your photos kind of just feel the same. And I'm like, yeah, but I think I'm like progressing technically. But there's also the aspect that the more you go, the more opportunity you have of getting something that's more unique. Because you got to be out there, you got to spend the time to do it.
That kind of goes hand in hand with what you said last week, though, or last podcast, where you were saying, you asked me if my hard drive blew up, how would I feel about it? And
Right.
you were like, no, I'd just do it again. Like that's sort
Yeah,
of
it
the
would.
thing for you.
Well, yeah, I said at the very end when we were talking about maybe critiquing photos or having people send them in and just kind of have a fun, interesting, and interactive portion of it.
No one did that.
And that's okay.
Jerks.
It's gonna take a little bit. I haven't checked the emails either. Have you?
I did like 2 days ago.
Okay. Um, Sorry, what was I going on about there?
You were going on about, we were talking about how if my hard drive blew up.
Yes, I'm not. So yeah, I said at the end of the last podcast, I'm not attached to my photos.
Yeah.
And it's not because I don't think they're good. I just think that the next one can be better.
Do you
know
not
what I mean?
have,
Like,
do you not have one photo where you're like, this is my best. I've crushed it on this one. This is S
well,
tier photo.
I have a photo that recently was a runner-up on Canadian Geographic. It actually made the cover of the Loon 2025 calendar. It's of a loon with its back turned, doing the shake, the flapping off the water with kind of like an autumn kind of vibe, even though it was in the spring. And I want to say that that's definitely not my best technical photo, and I usually lead more towards I want technique first, then I want to get technique with an engaging photo, but I want to make sure I can get that consistent technique. And I would say that this one isn't one of my most technical photos, but it's the one that's, I guess, been recognized the most by others. It's probably one of the ones that has the most likes, if you want to go on basis, that premise.
That's the only thing that
but
matters these days.
Apparently. But I don't know if I have, like, when I do, say, the top 10, I'll go through and do the top 10 of 2024. My opinion and my ideas of what I want my photos to be, or what kind of style I like. Yeah, they're all tighter portraits, but like moody, bokeh, backlit, rim light, like it changes. So like I go through these phases where I'm like, I really like bokeh right now. I really like rim light right now. I really like front lit detail with a certain kind of head tilt, or look at the photo, or look at the camera, sorry. So it's hard to get attached to something when I'm not attached to a specific thing myself. If that makes sense.
I think it does.
Does it make sense?
Yeah.
I've never found a reason why to be attached to a specific photo of mine yet. Maybe I just haven't captured it yet.
I asked that question with a specific photo of mine in mind. Because so how I sort of attack photography or birds, I have, in everything I do in life, opinions. And
Amen.
Amen. And there are certain birds that I just feel more attached to, or excited about when they're around. One of which being ospreys. And I guess I can tell a story. That's what the whole point of this is. I don't know. I think I've told you this story before. I might not have. So one time when I was very young, I don't know, maybe single digits, but maybe just outside of it, maybe 10 or 11. I was fishing with my dad and my grandpa towards your house, actually, up Balsam Lake.
Mm-hmm.
And my papa hated when sunfish would take his worm. So he would smack them off the water or the boat when he caught them. So he would grab one and just go like, bam. And it would just like slap off of the rim around the edge of the boat or the water itself. And some of them wouldn't make it.
No kidding.
Yeah. So I'm up front of the boat, and there's a couple of floating sunfish around. I think I'm into birds at this point, but not really in a way that made any sense because I'm like 9 or 10. So I'm just like, birds are great. Look at the robin. Freaking love grackles. And anyway, he was telling me about ospreys either that trip or just in passing because he was kind of an outdoorsy fella. And above these floating carcasses, an osprey was circling. And an osprey did its circle and dive probably 10, 15 feet off the front of this aluminum boat we had rented on Balsam Lake. And it's still one of the coolest things that I think I've ever seen in my life. Slammed into the water in front of me, grabbed this sunfish, took off. I guess you can count it as baiting. Bring this whole thing around full circle. But
can you?
No. But no camera was involved other than my eyes.
Right.
So I was like,
now I don't think a camera has to be involved for it to be baiting. I just think
No,
it
that's
has to be
true.
intention. It just has to be intention, that's all.
yeah.
Which sounds like the intention was not there.
The intention was not to feed the osprey. The intention was to teach the sunfish a lesson.
Right. There was collateral damage that it got slammed
Yeah.
from the sky.
So I've just always, it's one of those core memories that just burn in my memory.
Yeah, for sure.
So I've always felt like ospreys are super cool. They remind me of my papa, who's now passed, and just like good times being outside. So I've always just loved ospreys. And it's funny. It was my first day or first outing anyway with the A9, and I had owned the 200 to 600 because I had it on my A7R3 before that. And I was posted up in the springtime near an osprey nest that's close by, trying to figure out the camera. So I was like, I'll go to somewhere where I know there's somewhat of a consistent bird. I know what he's going to do. And I'll hope to try this camera out. Hi, Ted. That's my cat. I don't know if you can hear him.
Yeah, I can.
So
Hi, Ted.
Hey, buddy. So osprey male, I think, comes flying back with a very large sucker fish. And I'm sort of between where he's coming from and the nest. And I kind of just hold the A9 up, push the back button autofocus, and spray as many pictures as I can. And check them over later, and they're all like, this doesn't matter to the story, but they're all like majorly underexposed. It's like bright white sky cut out of an osprey in the middle, like just black. And I was like, shoot, that probably would have been sick. Throw them into a Lightroom and do the old drag the shadows way up and turn the highlights way down.
Use that Sony dynamic range.
Bro, like it's my favorite photo I've ever taken. The osprey, like, and this didn't have eye autofocus. It was just like plant a focus box somewhere on it.
Yep.
And it will keep that spot in focus. The bird's torso is in focus. The eye is in focus. The wingtips on either side, which are kind of towards the camera and away from the camera, are nicely out of focus. The suckerfish is in focus. There's like, you can see clouds behind it. It's freaking dope. And everything about this picture I like. I think technically it might be one of my best pictures, even though I had to like go bonkers with the shadows and the
severely
highlights.
doctor it.
Yeah. But I didn't cut out the bird with like a mask or anything. It just like,
Why not?
I didn't need to, because it was already
I'm kidding.
Oh, I don't know. But like, it doesn't, I don't think it looks unnatural the way I kind of did it. And like, I have the raws and stuff, so I can go back and edit it differently in the future. But
Right.
I think it's the only picture that I've taken that I do want to print large and put up somewhere. I just haven't done it yet. And it means a lot to me just because it was like, it's my favorite bird. It like the camera nailed it. It was a cool thing to see. And it was, I've got a lot of compliments on that picture when I've shown people. Like, it's my background at Zoom at my work. Like, whenever people call me, they have to look at this picture I took. I'm like, I did
force
that.
them. Look at this.
Oh, I force people at my work to look at my pictures all the time.
That's hilarious.
Good hobby of mine.
Yeah.
But yeah, every time I look at that picture, I just get happy that I'm like, I did that with my favorite subject. And like, it's a cool feeling to me. Like, it makes me feel
without
good.
tracking.
It had tracking, not automatic eye tracking.
Right.
So
it's
how
like
I
a square kind of thing.
Yeah, so I'd
Like
have a
box.
focus point and just try to hit a spot on the bird. But like I said, I
Right.
literally just lifted it up, pushed focus, and panned.
Do you
And
remember those days?
It wasn't that long ago, man.
Yeah, but me either. Like I got into the mirrorless EOS R cameras in 2021, which is not that long ago. But like, I can't really remember doing the focus recompose.
Oh, I never did that.
No,
No.
you never had that era where you had just like a single point focus, non-continuous,
No.
single shot. Okay, so you didn't suffer nearly as hard. I'm trying to shoot kestrels and stuff coming out of a barn where they had a nest, which I did get a couple shots with the Fuji flying at me. I was actually staged just at the entrance of them flying back.
That's cool.
And
I don't have a good
I
shot
got
of
it.
Kestrel.
I'll see if I can post it with this when
I'll
it goes
post the
live.
Osprey too. It's on my Instagram,
Yeah.
but we'll post it on the other one.
And that was the single point autofocus where it's like it has to cross a certain point at the right time. And I was shooting RAW at that time, which I do shoot RAW now, but I use JPEG a lot of the time just for social media use. It's a point in time where I had like 4 frames a second. I think it would go up to 8, but if I was up
XT4?
at 8, this was the 2. Are you kidding me? I never even known anything more than the 2. No, the XT4 is too much money for me.
I think I started talking to you towards the end of your Fuji journey.
Yeah, I had the Fuji the first time we shot together.
I don't think so.
I think so, didn't we?
Nope. The first time was we went to TTP with Shay. And
Yeah, I had the R10 then.
Yep, you had the R10 and the 1-4. And you were shooting golden eyes, and I was like, what the hell, man? I got my
So
big
that would've
Sony. What the
been-
hell's he doing?
Was that 2022? Because I got
Yeah.
it September 2021,
I think it was last year, yeah. Maybe the year before.
2 years ago. 2022, 2 years ago. Because it will be 25 this year. Yeah.
Math.
So it had to have been 2022. But that's interesting. I thought I was still shooting Fuji, but those days. I'd still go back to it. It's funny that people are still shooting that way now. I speak to this guy once in a while, Jimmy. I think it's Rosenbrock. Oh, shoot. I hope I don't get it wrong. He's from Maryland.
He's definitely going to listen to this.
He does. He has his own
Oh, really?
podcast, the Good Birder podcast.
Oh,
Let me check. Let me look it up right now. I think he's JD. Oh, sorry. I don't like dead air, but I'm looking right now.
no, it's fine. I can fill the hole.
JRMD Birds, Jimmy Rosebrock.
Oh,
And he likes to call his Nikon a potato because he still does shoot a potato in the Nikon. He shoots a D500.
that's not a potato. That's
no,
like the best potato.
It's probably the best. It's a baked potato with the works.
Yeah, yeah.
And that is the name of this pod episode, Baked Potato with the
Baked
Works.
potato with the work.
I don't know. Kyle likes to name them, not me. It's not my thing.
That's not a bad one.
It's not bad. And it's funny that he's still shooting it, and he does some good work, but he hasn't even ventured into the mirrorless yet.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people haven't. I mean, I'm not saying a lot. It's not majority. It's a minority, but it's still a good amount.
Yeah. And for me, I'm sort of a techie person. Like, I'm in IT and stuff. So my mind's always like, ooh, what can the new tech do for me? Where I think a lot of the DSLR shooters are like I know this thing backwards and forwards. I have to
Okay,
learn
sure.
something new. There's going to be
Yeah,
time I could be
but
getting shots in that time.
they're so naive on how well animal eye tracking works.
It it's a, as you've said before, a bit of a
It's a game
crutch.
changer. Yeah, like it's a game changer in the fact that if the bird is on the left side of your frame and it's looking to the left, you can now put it onto the right side of your frame to look into the frame, not into the edge of the frame. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
It bothers me how many people don't do that.
That don't even notice and pay attention to the fact that their bird is on the right hand side of the frame and it's looking right
Yeah.
right at the edge of the frame.
Yep.
Because I look at the photo and I go, what is he looking at? What's over there?
One of the
I
first
want to
things I
know.
do if I'm going to crop is where's that bird looking? And I'll just ignore everything on the back side of the bird's head.
Yeah.
That side
Yeah.
of the picture doesn't exist anymore.
Right. And so having the animal eye tracking, if it is looking back and forth and it's kind of active, it's preening once in a while. When it pops its head up, it looks left, it looks right. It's there's no real predictive aspects of it. You can just hold your tracking, certainly with Canon anyway. I know Sony can do it and some of the Nikons can do it. If it looks one way, you just move it over an inch and now it's got the right proper composition. And then if he looks the other way next time, you just hold that and it just finds it and
Yep.
it's so good.
There's been
I'm not
many.
saying I'm not saying it translates to good quality work from my end, but it's just
No, you're right.
it kind of now blends into your ideas of wanting gear, which is it's what you kind of get out of it when you're shooting in your experience.
Yeah.
And it's a far better experience, let's be real.
Well, and that's yeah. Like
It
there's
doesn't
been
mean the final product's going to be better, just the experience.
because you're not so concerned about what your camera necessarily is. Or at least I can be able to say it like this: you have more confidence in that your camera is going to capture stuff, as opposed to I wonder if it missed that one.
Yeah, maybe even less chimping because you know at least if you fired off 40 or 50 shots or 60 shots in that little burst, you're going to have, 70% of them that are going to be at least focused, and then you're
Yeah.
going to just have to pick the one that's the most appealing out of it.
Exposure,
That's how it feels for me anyway.
exposure setting. I'm not going to say it's a thing of the past, but it's getting there. So what I mean by that is like DSLR guys take a shot and have to check.
Oh, to test,
yeah,
see where
they're
they're
like,
at.
oh, it's
Yeah.
bright enough or it's dark enough. I'm sure
Yeah.
there are people out there that know, like, I know approximately this ISO, this aperture, and this shutter speed, and this light
yeah.
should give me this.
Yep.
I don't know if I'm ever going to get to that point because I don't have to anymore. I just look at my viewfinder and I'm like, I would like this to be a little darker or brighter.
Literally.
Done.
And I've been doing that since 2014. I think 2013 the XT1 came out and I bought one in 14 after I got rid of my 5D Mark III. So I've had that EVF live view exposure since 2013,
Yeah.
a decade. So I don't know if I could do it either.
I started when I think I really started getting serious about it when I had my Canon ADD. And playing with the autofocus setting, like getting back on what you said before about using like single point and focus and recompose type stuff. That never crossed my mind because I was trying to shoot turns flying around
Yeah,
and
good
diving
luck.
at a local pond. So I was like, let's just get a big old focus box and set these focus points to try to track this thing. But all of your focus points are in the center of the screen in the little cluster that they were with DSLRs.
Yeah.
Or there's maybe 6 or 7 around and the kind of spread out. And it's like, how did now I'm like, how did I even manage to get shots? I did.
Yeah.
And I got the
When
7D
I-
Mark II after that, and that had a way better focusing system, but it was still a little cluster of, I think, 42 points in the center.
I was just going to say, when I had my 5D Mark II, it had 9 points. And then I think it went up to, don't quote me on this, but it was dozens Whether it
Yeah.
was 30 or 60, I don't know, but it might have been 70, but it was way more than the 9 that I could have selected before.
Yeah.
Like it was, yeah. The continuous autofocus was still junk. You couldn't depend on it, but
You'd have like one shot in, one out, one in, because
yeah.
the bird's moving in and out of the focus points that are fixed in place, and you're trying to keep it
Yeah.
in the center of the. I was gonna say
And
EVF,
everything's
the
way
VF.
heavier. Yeah.
I don't mind heavier.
Well, that's funny because when I first went from Fuji to the R10 and 100/400, what a tiny little kit. I actually didn't have any resistance, so I had to relearn the holding techniques with a lens that and a body that you don't even really feel. Like I know it sounds silly, like you should be able to hold air and it doesn't feel like anything, but it to have a little bit of resistance on your hand pushing down also gives you the reaction of how much pressure you need to be putting up.
Yep.
But when you don't have anything there, like you're wobbling all over the place because if you touch your shutter, it takes nothing to move that kit. So there was a kind of a couple months there where it was like relearning just the weight. And if it's the further things zoom out and they're not internal, things get longer, things get heavier. That wasn't the case for that kit. But there's kind of things ergonomically things like that happen when you get new kits. But yeah, mine was not enough weight that I was used to.
I was selling some gear for a friend of mine that I met kind of locally recently, and she had an older, like I think it was a 5D Mark III and a 6D Mark II, and she brought them over amongst other things she would like me to sell for her. And I picked up the 5D Mark III and the 6D, and I was like, I miss holding a DSLR. Like these chunky monkeys feel good. Like they just feel,
feel good,
substantial, and like
Yeah.
you could do some work.
Yeah, 100%. They're just missing all the extra stuff that I want now.
Yeah. So I'm about, like, since I'm a techie guy, like I'm about building computers. I wish I could take like a 7D Mark II body and cram the R7 internals in it.
Could you imagine?
It'd be so sick.
Just a total sleeper camera.
Yeah. I would love that. Make that
a 70
possible.
Mark II, a 70 Mark II with a silent shutter.
I would call it an R7D Mark 1.
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's the first one of it. You could call it a Mark II.
Yeah, exactly. But like,
yeah,
I had the ADD for a while when I had my Sony stuff, and I would pick it up every once in a while, and it wasn't even a big body like the 7D or even the 5D is like a chunk. But I pick it up, I'm like, yeah, like this feels, it's heavy and it's like thick and it like clanks around kind of a little bit and creaks, but it was just like, yeah, this thing's dope.
it's character.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. There's not a lot of character to lenses and bodies much anymore like there was. You know what I mean?
Now you're starting to sound like camera conspiracies.
Well, no, they're all kind of cookie cutter and they kind of all do the same thing. You're almost deciding just on options more than the character side of it, which is totally fine by me because I only really care about the options I can get for a certain price point. So, like, it's not like it's offensive to me, but there definitely certainly were characteristics to older cameras.
Camera Conspiracies guy is a YouTube channel. Actually, not guy, Camera Conspiracies. And he always talks about this, like, lenses having this 3D pop. And I don't know what the balls he's talking about. So he'll do these comparisons.
I don't think he gets out of his apartment much.
He does. Actually, he goes to like...
No, I'm kidding.
I kind of want to run into him at one of the parks in Toronto.
Name?
What's his name? Casey.
Yeah, Casey. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And he'll film himself at like definitely like Colonel Sam Smith Park. I've seen him there, and probably TTP. But he'll talk about these lenses having character and 3D pop, and it sounds like what he's talking about is flaws. So it might be a little bit more chromatic aberration, or it might not be as sharp, or it might have like a softer edges. And for me, I don't look at that stuff when I'm taking a picture. Right. I'm like, oh, the bird's at the edge because kind of compositionally that would be okay. But I still want him in focus because he's at the edge or at the side. So I want a lens that is sharp from fully left to fully right.
Yeah, I mean, Alex is kind of like that. I remember, last year, I think, talking to him about this, or at least it got brought up, where I think he said when you're doing, like, when you're shooting when you're in Lightroom or in Photoshop or whatever it is, deselect the lens. What do they call that?
Oh,
Lens
like lens
corrections?
corrections. Yeah.
Because it actually then shows the characteristics of the lens and those obscure things that get fixed digitally, and it gives you more character.
Interestingly enough, that came up recently when my buddy Will, who we spoke about before, mentioned that his R7 was clearing the buffer faster than his R8. And I was like, that kind of makes sense, but it also kind of doesn't. And one of the ways I found to clear the buffer faster was turning off those corrections in the camera, because then the camera's not processing that stuff. So
Yeah,
you
'cause
can
it's
do
a
it.
bunch of stuff in the background that's kind of chunking up and using processing
Yeah.
fake
But like,
capability. Yeah, I've done the same thing.
I think it even applies those to the RAWs.
Well, I don't know. I don't want to say it does. It might. I
Yeah,
don't
I'd
know.
have to check that. Because I think like if you have a
Yeah, no, I
really
think it would.
distorted lens, like because
Yeah.
it's like really wide or something, they're going to apply the corrections even to the raw to kind of flatten the horizon. And like if it's not, I can't remember the term, but
I think that's right. I think that's right.
so I think in the Canon menu there's the digital lens optimization, or
I turn that off.
mine is on, I think, on the R7 but off on the R8
For that extra
for
buffer
that.
and all that.
Yeah.
Or just shoot JPEG. It's like unlimited.
Yeah.
I'm offending. I think I offend people when I
I
say
don't.
that.
Here's the thing. Like there's a school, and I've heard this in YouTube videos, so I might just be regurgitating for fun, I guess. But there'll be people that are like, pros use only manual and like all raw. But then you'll get pros that are like, no, I use all of the settings and just whatever makes most sense for me to get the shots. So maybe
Right.
on like I know that on a lot of sports shoots, they use JPEG because the files are smaller and they can send them to their newspaper or magazine or editor or whatever faster.
Yep.
So they're not using the RAWs.
And they can't be edited.
Right. Because like yeah, you're not. I don't know if there's like legal requirements for that, for like the leagues and stuff, because maybe they're like, we don't want you doctoring these to make it seem like something else happened.
There's something there
Yeah.
that they don't doctor them. Yeah.
Yeah. Even like Jared Polin talked about the Trump getting shot at, and like he interviewed the reporters that got some of those crazy shots from that, and they're doing the same thing. Yeah, they're doing their JPEGs and sending them right off to their publications now.
Well, and that's my kind of point is like the only thing you'll notice with my photos are they're a little more contrasty and a little more saturated. Again, that you'll get that with a JPEG versus a RAW, because a RAW is kind of a flat file. But I'm not doing much altering. I'm kind of have that same mindset where it's like I'm trying to keep things natural. A purple sandpiper's orange beak and feet are a certain orange for a certain reason, and if you kind of take that color and you shift it, then it's not as natural. So why not just shoot in camera with JPEG the way it is? It's going on social media anyway. No one's really going to notice much of a difference. You're not going to see the bitrate difference unless you're sharing high resolutions on your website, or maybe even Flickr if you have Flickr Pro, or if you're printing. And I don't print.
I think I would like to
like-
print some stuff, but just to be like I said earlier, I'm proud of certain ones, so I'm like, I want this up in my house somewhere.
Sure, yeah. And if you're thinking about, okay, I'm going to go out to a spot that I want, if you're in my case, and there's going to be things that you want there, and maybe one of them is printing is an option, then maybe you should shoot JPEG plus RAW or RAW. If you want to, if your intentions of maybe a species that you're going to see that day is to print it. In my mindset, and I'm not trying to convince anybody, do whatever you want, but for me, my workflow is I barely even have to turn on my computer. I can just send them right from my camera to my phone in import them into Lightroom Mobile. This sounds so hacky, but it's just it's so easy. Like
We're both hacks, let's be
it's
honest.
it's a hobby. Like I just enjoy doing it just as much as I enjoy, talking with you about it. It's
The
just it's just something I enjoy doing. It's not for a specific reason. It's not to, you know what I mean? Even though I like the technical side of it and I like technically sound photos, I sometimes don't hold myself to the same standard due to me saying, "Oh, I'm just going to use JPEG."
I think I've said this before to you in other chats, but for me, the end result photo is the cherry on top of the sundae. The going out to a location, the spending some time in nature, the hanging out with friends, the seeing the animal, seeing what it's doing. That all makes up the ice cream, the banana, the sprinkles, the chocolate sauce, and then the photo or any photos I get from that are the cherry. So if without the cherry, the dessert was still great, but the cherry is the final like boom, like that was a good dessert. And I think
That
getting
makes sense.
coming full circle to your Algonquin thing, like, did you have fun with hanging out with the people who were there?
Oh yeah. So I went with like Teddy, my buddy Teddy. Teddy does photos. I went with my buddy Keith McGarity, and then I went with my buddy Mark Bernards, all on Instagram. And like you couldn't have asked for, better conversation and better company. Like you always have a good time that way. So
Right.
it's not like there was something looming over top that we didn't get anything. It was still an enjoyable, trip, and it's kind of, as long as you don't have a ton of expectation, coming home with nothing isn't that big of a deal. Like it was just nice to get away for a couple of days and just kind of enjoy company and be in the outdoors. So yeah, I don't think so. I mean,
I've wanted to come up with a term for photography because you've probably heard this before. It's called fishing, not catching.
yeah, 100%.
So like, what's the photography equivalent of that? Like you're going, you're. I don't know if that even makes sense as a comparison, but like for me anyway, the photo isn't the thing I'm going for. It's a nice thing to have whilst I'm doing other things that I enjoy.
Yeah, I don't know if I could put it into that same kind of
Metaphor.
metaphor, but yeah, I get it. Yeah, I 100%
Yeah.
get what you're saying. Yeah, and it checks out. I don't disagree, and I think it would. I think most people would agree with that. That's a probably very popular opinion.
I don't know. Sometimes I
Now,
feel like people are like the shot matters and everything else I can sacrifice to get the shot.
that's. I still don't think that's majority.
I wouldn't say it's majority, but there's definitely.
There's a bunch of people out there, but some of them are. A lot of them are doing it for many, many different reasons.
Yeah.
Some of them are for engagement, online social status, clout, posting every day. Some are doing it for photos to show for a workshop coming up, or for guiding, or there's financial aspects involved. If
Like
you're
we've
doing it for if you're doing it for a hobby though, and just enjoy it, and you're putting that much emphasis on going out and getting photos, then you're just, you're creating a negative aura about something that should be just enjoyable and positive.
yeah. And I think we've
And
touched on that.
we have, yeah. And I've been out with Mike a few times where he's kind of been like, "Oh, it was kind of a bust," and I'm just like, "Oh, it's nice to be out there." But if you get out once every 3 or 4 months and it's a bust, that's kind of probably going to feel like kind of a pain in the ass if you were
Yeah.
dependent or hoping to get something. So there's that aspect too.
True. And I think that's where, like you said earlier, like researching spots, using your networking and trying to maximize the time you have at a spot comes into play. You may not get anything like your recent experience, but sounds like you put yourself in the best chance you could have. Or you tried anyway.
The funny thing is, I actually don't agree with that.
Oh no.
Well, I don't agree with it because that's not typically the way I do things, and I would argue that I'm very successful with limited time.
Brag much.
No, but finding things to shoot and acquiring a target that I usually am set out to find.
Yeah, it sucks. She'll be like, I'm gonna go find some saw-whets, and then you'll be like, here's a saw-whet.
Right.
You jerk.
But if someone was like to tell me there was a saw-whet here, and I wouldn't go to that spot specifically waiting out to wait and hear for that thing. Like I almost think that the networking, certainly what I kind of saw on the weekend was more for like clout. Sharing the story, here's what I saw. Oh, here's where I saw it though. You know what I mean? And it was more of like I don't know. It's just not what I'm used to, I guess. I'm not used to like conversing with a bunch of photographers that are there all the time that kind of know each other. And again, like I said, some of them are really tight-lipped about where things were, but we're all open ears when they heard other people talking. So I don't like that.
Yeah.
Right off the bat. I'm not one to share stuff very much when I'm out by myself. We talked about that last week. I keep like a shitty breadcrumb, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
There's some whitewash out there. I'm very much kind of like an introvert or like a lone wolf out there kind of doing my thing. So like when I see all the networking and I see how people are trying to stay on top of the animals and stuff like that, there's a portion of it to me that I wouldn't say it's unethical, but I can see how things can get out of hand and pins and locations can get shared and places can get busy and overrun very, very, very quick.
Yep.
So that's why I would say I kind of disagree. Like the networking is great to introduce to people, make new friends, have somebody to go out to shoot with, maybe bounce ideas off of, get inspiration from.
Start a podcast
together. But when it's about sharing or not sharing locations, creating problems because this guy didn't really want to tell me anything, then it kind of comes to like politics involved.
I hate politics.
You know what I mean? But you know what I mean? It does add that layer of politics where it's just like, it could go bad quickly.
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? I don't want to make it like all negative. I'm a very kind of like, I don't want to say negative guy, but I always kind of like play devil's advocate where I'm like, yeah, but this could happen too. And I don't really like that.
I think the interesting thing is we play devil's advocate for each other. And
yeah, we do.
We learn a lot of opposite, contrary opinions to each other.
Yeah.
I think eventually, like, I know for me, I'm not going to say I'll listen to everything you say and like I'll do everything you say, but I definitely think like, I wonder how Matt would think differently about this situation and try to put myself in your shoes to see if I really am making a decision that I need to be, or maybe I can make it differently. So
no,
it's been a beneficial relationship for me.
Yeah. And I wouldn't say like there was nothing negative about the Algonquin thing. It's a little different speed than what I typically would do. I would just go walk.
Yeah, for sure.
I didn't see anybody being really an asshole. I didn't see anybody being negative, or it wasn't anything like that. It was just not what I was typically used to.
Yeah.
I would usually walk by these people and just kind of go, hey, and then continue on my way. Mm-hmm. So.
For sure.
Anyway, it was a good time. I froze a couple nights. No, it was pretty cold, but.
I would also say
degrees.
That this has been a good time.
It's always a good time.
Yeah, man. I think what I want to do right now, though, is get outside and see if I can get any Northern Lights shots, because it's kind of now.
They're currently going. So yeah, we won't hold you or the listeners much longer.
Yeah. So I would like to thank the 15 of you who may have stumbled across this interesting podcast. Yes, round of applause. I want to say that the numbers that I'm seeing, I don't know what I was expecting, but it makes me happy to know that we have one fan. Who was it that commented on our Instagram post that was like, I'm looking forward to this when it comes out. I really enjoy it. You guys are having conversations.
Our super fan. GP Wildlife Picks. I believe his name is Greg.
Shout out to GP Wildlife Picks. You're the man. And if you've made it this long into this one, then you're a true fan.
Yeah, he said he was looking forward to each episode. And we're going to hold you to that, Greg.
Yeah.
Because we are not going anywhere.
Nope. We are going to continue doing this thing. Like I said earlier, my name's Kyle. You can find me at kyle.boehm photography on Instagram. This is Matt. You can find him at _Matt Parrish on Instagram.
I shoot JPEG.
You shoot. I shoot JPEG and RAW.
That was my profile photo for a while. But anyway,
That you shoot JPEG.
Yeah.
We should make sure it's I shoot JPEG.
It was purple.
Yeah. If you want to email us, we still want to critique some of y'all's photos. As we discussed last time, it's is it the Angry Bird Pod?
No, just Angry Bird
angrybirdpod at gmail.com. And if you want to send in a picture or two, we'll give you what we think, and we'll post it on our very small podcast Instagram account.
Yep.
And like you heard last week, we have music now, which will start right now. Wow. Listen to it. All right. Love you, Matt.
Feathers beating
Love you,
wings,
Kyle.
all
See
up
you
in
later.
the
Till
lens.
next week. Till
Count
next
that
week.
Snapping, capturing all them trends. Peeping through the scope, freeze frame the fly. Angry Bird Pod Show, aiming for the sky. Oh, they click in the snap, see the birds on the map. Angry Bird Pod Flow, flipping through the recap. Kyle and Matt, dropping wings on blast. Tune in next week, this one never in the past. Eagles, hawks, and kestrels, flying so divine. Peep the live broadcast, podcast goldmine. Twisting in the air, birds of every kind. Critics gonna chirp, but they ain't ever dying. Zooming in on sparrows, robins in the mist. Matt's got the shutter, Kyle's got the twist. Feathered friends in flight, equipped with the strut. Angry Bird Pod Show, capturing the cut. Oh, they click in the snap, see the birds on the map. Angry Bird Pod Flow, flipping through the recap. Kyle and Matt, dropping wings on blast. Tune in next week, this one never in the past. On the twilight, watch the colors flash. Birds of every shade in a photogenic dash. No need for fame, just the birds flying free. Angry Bird Pod Show, bringing all the glee. Oh, they click and they snap, see the birds on the map. Angry Bird Pod Flow, flipping through the recap. Kyle and Matt, dropping wings on blast. Tune in next week, this but never in the past. Eagles, hawks, and kestrels, flying so divine. Keep the live broadcast, podcast goldmine. Twisting in the air, birds of black, so fine. Brain Matt, dropping wings on blast. Tuning in next week, this but never in the past. In the past. Tuning in next week, this but never in the past. In the past. Zooming in on sparrows, robins in the mist. Matt's got the shutter, Kyle's got the twist. Feathered friends in flight, equipped with the strut. Angry Bird Pod Show, capturing the cut. From dawn to twilight, watch the colors flash. Birds of every shade in a photogenic dash. No need for fame, just the birds flying free. Angry Bird Pod Show, bringing all the glee. Oh, they click and they snap, see the birds on the map. Angry Bird Pod Flow, flipping through the recap. Kyle and Matt, dropping wings on blast. Tune in next week, this one never in the past. From the past. Not shortcut. Not shortcut. Angry Bird Pod Show, bringing all the glee. Bringing all the glee.